Welcome everyone to the Boost Your Sorghum ROI with Double Team webinar. My name is Scott Stagenberg. I'm the Sorghum Product Marketing Director with S&W Seed Company. And my co-panelist here is Hunter Johnson, Marketing Development Rep with ADAMA. And so we are going to talk about Double Team Sorghum and ways to boost your ROI with the Double Team system. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. The way we got this set up is we would go through some information on the Double Team system and then take about 30 to 40 minutes, be able to answer your questions about Double Team and anything you might have with the system. So, okay, well, for those of you who might not be familiar with the Double Team system, it is over-the-top grass control with herbicide-tolerant sorghum system, and we'll talk more about the components. It is one of the most flexible systems on the market. We'll talk more about that here in a minute. You get unprecedented grass control. So as we talk through this and talk about what FirstAct can do, grassy weed control is very good with the Double Team system. Improve yield and profitability opportunities. Those are the things we're going to talk about today, largely because, weeds cost us yield. We know that. So if you can remove the weeds out of your field, you're going to increase your yields and increase your profits. And then, as we've mentioned, FirstAct has the shortest replant interval for key crops of the three herbicide systems that are out on the market. Well, I've talked a little bit already about what Double Team is, but as I said, it's a herbicide-tolerant sorghum. So the DT trait is in the sorghum seed. You're all familiar with how herbicide-tolerant sorghum or herbicide-tolerant crop systems work. And then you combine that with FirstAct, which is the herbicide produced and distributed by ADAMA. The active ingredient in FirstAct is quizalofop. So if you're familiar with quizalofop, you know that, again, as we mentioned, unprecedented grassy weed control. And you're spraying this over the top. So something that we've never had or hadn't had until we released this system several years ago, the ability to control grassy weeds after planting. Well, Double Team is the fastest growing technology out there in sorghum. If we look at our growth over the last couple of years, we see that it's moving along at a nice pace. As we compare it to herbicide-tolerant corn launch, we see that it has some of the same similarities as herbicide-tolerant corn in terms of adoption rates. And so, we look at there could be, you think about some of the similarities in the systems between herbicide-tolerant corn and Double Team sorghum. Talk a little bit about some of the strengths of the system, and we'll reinforce some of these as we go. But obviously, with a herbicide-tolerant system, the seed is going to cost a little more than what you would expect in a conventional system. But when we're going to show you the math behind this here in a minute, but it's only 3 bushel to the acre to pay for the seed. That's not very much. If you think about the yield losses that can occur because of grassy weeds, you can exceed 3 bushel pretty fast. One of the other ones we'd like you to think about is that a lot of times we hear, well, Double Team works great in my problem fields. That's where I'm going to put it, is the fields where I have grassy weed problems. But I have fields that are clean and I don't need it. Well, our experience has been that when we start walking fields with growers in July and August to look at their fields, we find that there are grassy weeds in every field. Or when you think a field doesn't have grassy weeds because it's been clean for the last couple of years, doesn't mean a situation's not going to arise where all of a sudden there's grassy weeds where you didn't expect it. So, thinking about this as an insurance policy is a way to go. And the other one we always ask is, well, you put glyphosate in your tank mix for your corn, cotton, and soybeans that are herbicide tolerant. We know they don't kill broadleaves anymore, so you're primarily doing that to control grasses, which again, that means you're somewhat making the assumption that grassy weeds exist on those acres as well. Well, ROI is one of the things that we've really been talking about lately because we really wanted to reinforce that this system does provide a return on your investment. We examined 3 trials that were done with Double Team and without. And so these systems often had the exact same treatments in them, except for the fact that one didn't have FirstAct applied and the other did. And when we looked at that, the yield differences were pretty substantial in these three studies that we looked at, and they averaged $137 an acre in return. So in those studies, the ROI was 4.7. So again, how it comes out on your farm is going to be different, but there is a potential there. You look at the 3 bushel to the acre to pay for the seed. It doesn't take a lot of yield protection by removing the grassy weeds to pay for this and get a good return on your investment. Well, I wanted to show you the background on the 3 bushel investment for the seed for Double Team. Here's the example that we're using. $200 for a bag of conventional treated seed or conventional seed versus 329 with Double Team. We're using a 45,000 seeding rate here, using 425 a bushel for the sorghum grain. So it takes 2.74 in this example to cover the $11.64 difference in the seed cost. If you move that down, you say, well, I don't pay $200 for my seed. My conventional seed is more like 150, and I'm going to plant 60,000. The number might jump to 3.2 or something. So again, this is where the 3 bushel to pay for the seed piece comes from. And as you can see, it's pretty consistent across all the variables you can think of that would go into this calculation. Now, one thing I wanted to mention, I didn't mention at the front, is that you should have a Q&A box. The chat will not work, but you can type in questions as we go, and they'll show up here in the Q&A box. I think they show up in yours. So if you have questions as we go, feel free to type them in. As I said, we'll have time for questions at the end, but if you've got them as we're going along, Hunter and I have no problem answering them as we go, and sometimes it's better because then the topic's fresh on everybody's mind. Okay, so one of the other things to think about, or the reason that we often think about, rather than just thinking about putting Double Team on the fields where you expect to have a problem, grassy weed problem, and the reason it fits on probably every acre is we know that in sorghum we rely a lot on pre-emerge herbicides for grass control. I would say somewhere in the range of 80% of the grass control comes from the pre-emerge. Sometimes those fail. As for those of you who are from the Western High Plains, you know this for a fact. And quite frankly, this is the reason Double Team was created. I was having a conversation with a grower in the Hugoton area and was asking him why they don't plant more grain sorghum around there. And he said, well, we can't count on our pre's always working. And then the grassy weeds get in the field and cause us problems. So think about that. I grew up in Northeast Kansas, where we get a lot of rain. Sometimes we get too much rain. So if you're in one of the places in the high plains or a little farther east where it rains a little more, sometimes we get a lot of rain and the pre's play out faster, and then we get late season grass control. So having Double Team in the field helps get through those kind of scenarios. Anita Dilly, a weed ecologist at Kansas State University, published a paper where they went and looked at all of their research data as well as surveys around the state of Kansas. And when they got done, they estimated that the conventional herbicide systems, on average, cost growers between 15 and 60% yield loss. Again, you think about that. We've all seen the 60. 15, I'm here to tell you, is probably pretty tough to see in your field. I know back when we were doing a lot of the precision ag work and looking at yield maps after we'd scouted fields, you couldn't see a 10% yield loss with the naked eye. You had to, it was about 15% before you started saying, wow, there's something going on in that field or in that spot. So, 15%, like I said, that's something that may sneak up on you if you're not thinking about it. And then, of course, we go back to the fact that we talked about earlier, the glyphosate in your corn and soybean post. Okay, well, again, we've talked a little about the unprecedented weed control. Here's some pictures from some trials we have done. Of course, the with and without Double Team. Talk a little bit about most flexible system on the market. As we mentioned before, um, Quizalofop has a very short replant interval, 4 months in most cases for most of the major crops. I think if you had to push that a little bit, you might be able to get away with less. But a lot of the other two herbicide tolerant sorghum systems out there might have plant back intervals in excess of 9 months. So again, we talk a lot about this system is very flexible. It's also very easy to use. I get a lot of questions about, well, do I have to do anything different? Do I have to plant it thicker, do this or do that? No, it is sorghum. There's a single mutation that provides the herbicide tolerance. The rest of it is sorghum genetics. And so the sorghum plant is still by and large the same sorghum genetics and plant you would get with, any other. So you treat it exactly the same. Same seeding rates, same fertilizer rates. A lot of everything else should be the same that you would do with your farm or when you're planting sorghum. It's just you have the opportunity to put the FirstAct over the top and control your grassy weeds. And to kind of reinforce that easy to use, just select and plant a double team hybrid that works in your environment. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. Spray the FirstAct over the top. We ask that you wait till it's 11 inches tall, and some of these other things. Hunter will go into this in a little more detail here later. And then harvest your crop from your clean field. It's easy. It's really that simple. As I said, there's nothing special that has to be done with double team. Well, we know that a recent survey was published that in agriculture, growers make a lot of their buying decisions based on recommendations from other growers. So a year ago, we surveyed a lot of the double team growers from the previous year and asked a handful of questions about satisfaction and that. 100% of them were satisfied with the weed control that they got. 100% of them who tried it said they were going to increase their acres the next year. And this is pretty common. We see this a lot. If we can get someone to try it, the second year they often expand their acres by a ratio of 2 to 3 times what they planted the first year because they have that good of experience with it. Again, people are satisfied with the performance. They see the value of it, and they found it easy to use. A couple of testimonials. Travis Madsen, he's in Western South Dakota. I know the first year that Travis was one of our initial growers, and when we described the technology to him and he experienced it, he said, this is the easiest decision I've ever made. I have a lot of acres of sorghum. I have grass sandbur problems. I'm going to put it on every acre. That way, the management of my sorghum acres is very simple. Mike Klein's a double team grower. And for him, he was talking about how efficient it was for the cost of production. So again, when we survey people or we talk to people about the system, they're always very happy with its performance. We're going to talk about the hybrids that are available on the market for the 2025 growing season. And then we'll talk a little bit about our Double Team 2 system that's coming and some of the changes that'll be coming there. Now, I wanted to show you this slide because everything I'm going to show you in this seminar is going to be in our Sorghum Partners brand. And so you'll see this logo on all the hybrids, and we'll talk about them in that vernacular. However, we have these partners out there who it is possible for you to buy double team through them. So if you see something here you like and you notice one of these companies or you recognize one of these brands that you often are working with now, ask them about the double team hybrids they carry, and they should be able to help you to find the ones that are like the ones I'm talking about or similar ones. So I wanted to show you this just to let you know that you have options in terms of the brand that your double team seed comes in. Here's the 4 hybrids that are currently on the market. These will be the ones that will be available to you in 2025. And we'll go through each of these individually. But if you look at our numbering system, the first number, the 30, the 4, the 5, and the 6 all indicate maturity in a range. And so 3830 is an early, 45A45 is a medium early, 58M85 is a medium, and 65B21 is a medium, but on the later end of the medium scale. And so you can see, based on those maturities, the areas of adaptation basically move from northwest to southeast in each of the systems, or at least in the plains, and the central plains. And then when you get on the East Coast, basically moves from north to south up and down the coast. Okay. If we look at these hybrids, we put together this placement table. 3830 is an extremely tough hybrid. Is very popular in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, where yields can be a challenge every year based on either rainfall or simple growing season length. 58M85s, as I said earlier, is a medium. It handles stress very well. Its background that it has is such that it's always been a widely adapted, very dependable hybrid. The others you see here, high yielding dry land, limited irrigation, and full irrigation. So we'll talk about each of these as we go. All right. Well, as I mentioned, 3830 is an early. You can see bronze semi-compact head, excellent yield for maturity, excellent emergence. The genetics in 3830 are similar to some of the hybrids, conventional hybrid sorghum partners had in the past. And we know that in cool, wet soils like you might experience in the high plains, in no-till, this hybrid always comes out of the ground really well. Excellent fit, as I said, for the northern high plains or other short season environments. It's possible this is a great fit for after you lose maybe a corn crop to hail, cotton crop on the high plains of Texas, those kinds of things. You know, this is a hybrid that in many of those environments could be planted as late as July 10th if you needed to. So it can fit in again, in an earlier maturing regular planted season or as a fill in after a crop is lost in some of our more southern environments. 45A45, as I said, is a medium. Again, another bronze hybrid. This one has a little tighter head than 3830. This hybrid has excellent yield potential. We've seen this under irrigation, high yielding dry land. This hybrid will perform very well under those conditions. So if you're in a situation where you got a lot of good soil moisture starting out, and you believe that your yield potential for the year is a little better than normal, 45A45 is an excellent choice. It's got good standability. It too will come out of the ground. And again, as you move, you move this one a little farther east, it performs very well. We have had this hybrid planted all the way into northern South Dakota. And so, again, it can cover a lot of environments throughout the western and central Great Plains. Well, I mentioned 58M85 before. As I said, this hybrid has a great deal of flexibility and is very consistent in its yield. Another bronze hybrid. They're all 4 bronze hybrids. So if you want a cream hybrid, you're going to have to wait till we get the double team 2s that are coming along. But this is the first one that has any sugarcane aphid tolerance. The previous 2 did not. In the environment you plant those other 2, the earlies and the medium earlies, this isn't often a big concern. But 58M85 has moderate SCA tolerance, has stay green for good standability. I think this is one of the things that really makes it really well adaptable for the environments that it's in. 65B21, this is our longest season hybrid and also has the highest SCA tolerance. Now, 65B21 has excellent yield potential. We see that when we put this under irrigation or some of the higher yielding environments, that's when it really shines. It's a little shorter in stature. You can see in this picture, there's basically more conventional hybrids on each side of it. And you can see that it's a little shorter, but it's extremely leafy. We've got some drone shots overhead with 65B21 next to 58M85, and the ground coverage in the B21 is pretty amazing. So it's a little shorter, but very leafy. So that's what provides the high yields. It has high SCA tolerance. So this is the only hybrid on the market right now that has high SCA tolerance. This hybrid also has excellent standability. It's got the stay green and stiff stalk trait in it, and so it stands. We have seen some scenarios where this thing stood and nothing else would. We had some windstorm come through our Lubbock demo 2 years ago, 40-mile-an-hour winds, gusts up to 60 mile an hour, and this hybrid was the only one that wasn't leaning the next morning. We also had a scenario down in South Texas last year where they had some charcoal rot and some stalk rot problems in a plot. There was a lot of lodging, 65B21, hardly any lodging in. I'm not saying that B21 has stalk rot tolerance, but I think that if the stalk is compromised, it still stands. So we've had some excellent experiences in some very stressed environment where 65B21 was standing and other things were not. Okay, well, if you are interested in a forage sorghum, we also have a silage hybrid. SP2707 DT is a early maturing dual purpose. So this is one of those silage hybrids that'll get 5 to 7 feet tall, put on a very large grain head, which will result in high quality silage when you're done. You get all that starch in there, so you're going to have some pretty high quality silage and still be able to control the grassy weeds in your silage fields. And here's a picture of 2707, just to give you an idea that it's not one of your traditional long season 10 to 12 foot tall silages, but it's a dual purpose, as you can see from the picture on the right. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Hunter, talk a little bit about the FirstAct system.
Thanks, Scott. Like you said, my name is Hunter Johnson. I'm with ADAMA. We provide FirstAct herbicide that is used in the double team system. Scott might have mentioned this earlier, but this is a very easy system to use. If you follow just a few steps, you are sure to have a good season with your herbicide control, your grassy weed control, I should say. Just like anything, my first recommendation would be to start clean. You guys have been hearing that for years in any kind of system that you use. What I recommend is using something with a group 15 herbicide up front as your pre-plant or pre-emerge application. That way we can at least have some control of some of those grassy weeds up front. We need to try to wait till the plant's 11 inches tall, V8 stage. Most common rates we would use in this system with FirstAct is usually 10 ounces. That's probably their average rate that's used throughout the season. I field calls, and that's what guys feel comfortable with, the guys that have used this in the past. Now, when you get into some of your heavier infestations of whether it's crabgrass, foxtail, or field sandbur, some guys are needing the 12-ounce application. Now, you can use 2 applications per season. So I don't care how you split them up. Some guys are doing the first shot, they're using 12 ounces and they're coming back with 10. So it's really up to you on that, depending on your weed pressure. Try to use 15 gallons of water. We need that coverage, especially if it's later in the season. You want to make sure you can get that FirstAct down to your grassy weeds. Another big point I would make here in some of these steps that you would follow is I want to use a crop oil. I don't care if it's a high load crop oil or your standard crop oil at a 1% volume. That has worked the best. I mean, just kind of going back to old school methods, I like to stay away from some of these adjuvants that are pre-mix of, a surfactant, an oil, or this or that. All these things combined, those tend not to work as well. So if we can just simplify that and use a crop oil, that has worked the best. Both application methods are allowed, ground and air. So depending on how you guys, and depending on what region you're in, what works best for you. So that's pretty open there. Now, when you buy your seed, you're gonna have to fill out a stewardship agreement. So in that stewardship agreement, you are required to make at least one FirstAct application on all double T makers. Now, Scott alluded to this earlier. Some guys feel that they're using this as an insurance policy. They're going to put it on their troublesome fields. And guys, some still think that they don't have a grass problem. And that might be the case. I mean, where some guys might have a bigger problem than others. But what I found out personally in the past season, walking fields with growers, looking at the performance and everything, we were seeing fields that they had not treated with FirstAct. They had grass, and it was more than what they originally thought. So, like, guys are spraying their fields, their cornfields, and a lot of times they're going to have Roundup in the tank. And you kind of ask yourself, well, why do you still have Roundup in the tank? Well, to control my grass. So there's no difference here in the sorghum crop. You probably are going to have to control some amount of grass. So back to that stewardship agreement. Like I said, one application across all acres, but you can make two depending on your pressure. And like I said, we're starting off at 11 inches tall or V8 stage all the way up to boot stage. Now, coming in, Scott will get to this a little bit later in the presentation, but as we get into the second generation of Double T, which is called Double Team 2, that height restriction will be greatly reduced. So you will be able to spray FirstAct sooner than you are right now in the first Double Team system. And while I'm on that subject, like I said, we're waiting till V8 stage on until you spray your FirstAct. Now, you're probably going to need to make a broadleaf herbicide application as well. I like to stage those 7 days apart. So you want to come in first with your broadleaf application, and then at least wait 7 days, 5 to 7 days, to come back with your grass control, your FirstAct application. And I get many questions. Why can't I mix it? Why I want to save a trip across the field. And I definitely understand that. The only issue is quizalofop it's a little finicky at times, and it has a tendency to have a adverse reaction whenever you combine broadleaf herbicide and FirstAct. So there's a chance that you would lose efficacy of your grass control. So that's the whole point of why somebody would buy this system. They want excellent grass control. And the way to ensure you're getting excellent grass control is to use FirstAct by itself with your crop oil and your AMS. Because when you start mixing products such as Husky, 2,4-D, things of that nature, I can't guarantee that you're going to have great success. I mean, the antagonism that the quizalofop and that broadleaf herbicide have can reduce some of your grass control. So you're kind of defeating the purpose. So that would be one recommendation I would make. And I know people sometimes will do what they want to do. I'm just throwing this out there as a warning that it's harder for me to guarantee something is going to work, and when we don't follow these steps. So is there anything that, like Scott said, there's a Q&A box, type your questions in. Scott, do you have anything else you want to hit on as far as the herbicides?
No, just to, if you want to follow up on some of these other stewardship requirements, because there are some that are, a little different than what they have dealt with in other crops.
Okay, good point. So double team sorghum, we don't want to plant it 2 years in a row on the same acre. Like I said earlier, we want to make sure we're getting at least one application across all double team acres. And another thing that I guess we don't think about sometimes is clean your planter. I know that sounds elementary, but whenever you don't have a clean planter, it might raise some issues when you go across the field, and then you come back to spray, where you're going to have a spot that's not double team, or it'll be spread out throughout the field. So that might raise some concern. And of course, if you have any suspected weed resistance, we need to get on top of that as soon as possible. We want to protect this technology and steward this technology is to the best of our ability, because this is excellent technology in the marketplace, and we want to protect it for as long as we can. I've seen other systems in other crops that are similar, and I can't say the same thing for it. You know, excuse me. We've had the abuse when it comes to stewarding those systems, and it's not turning out the way everybody wanted to. So we need to keep this system around as long as we can. So let's try to steward that to the best of our ability. So anything else?
No, I think that covers it. Well, let's talk about what's coming. Double Team 2 is the next generation of the double team system that we will be bringing forward in 2025 on a small scale, and then on a larger scale in 2026. Let's talk about the benefits of Double Team 2. It's all new genetics. So the breeding teams had 5 more years to continue to develop new hybrids, new parent lines that are herbicide tolerant or have the DT trait in them. And as a result, we're going to see increased yields, and we see that. And we've seen that in the plots we had out in 2024, and we'll continue to test them in 2025. Hunter mentioned it earlier, in that with the Double Team 2, because we now have the DT trait in both parents, the resulting hybrid has higher tolerance. The recommended best time is 2 to 20 inches. You can spray as early as 2 inches tall sorghum, somewhere in that V3, V4 range, all the way up to boot again. So with this, the Double Team 2, you're going to be able to get into the field sooner. And there are scenarios where, we've had a real demand for this. The one that comes to mind is volunteer corn. Oftentimes, the volunteer corn will come up with the sorghum, and we would routinely get a call from someone says, well, my volunteer corn's 12 inches tall and the sorghum's 6 inches tall, and you want me to wait. I'm not sure there'll be anything there if we wait. So that won't be such a problem now. You're going to be able to get in there earlier if you need to. The other thing that are coming along with the Double Team 2, since we've had time to continue to improve the genetics, is they will have the latest agronomic advances. We talked about stiff stalk and stay green earlier. These are 2 traits that improve standability and late season drought tolerance. And it's something that's been part of the S&W breeding program for the last 10 years, is using traits like this to improve yield and standability. The nice thing that we have with these 4 hybrids, they have a high tolerance for charcoal rot. At our breeding station in Lubbock, we can often get rain early in the year, and then it turns off hot and dry. And so we have pretty frequent incidents of charcoal rot in our plots. And I know it happened last year, particularly in the dryland trials. And I know Payne called me that one day and said, these things have excellent charcoal rot tolerance because they all are still standing, where in a lot of the other plots, things are falling down. And then the other thing that we think is a game changer is that all 4 of these hybrids will have high sugarcane aphid tolerance. So that high level of tolerance you get in all of our conventional hybrids now, or newly released conventional hybrids, it will be in these hybrids. And the other thing you get when you have the trait in both parents is we now have 100% trait purity. So if you've used Double Team in the past and you notice that after you sprayed the FirstAct, some of the plants in the field died, we won't have that problem anymore. So let's talk about the hybrids real quick. We've got 4 of them that are coming forward. Again, you can see it here. We've got 2 earlies and 2 mediums, and we'll talk about those each individually. The first one is 28C17. This is an early, so you can see 54 to 58 days to mid-bloom. It is a cream hybrid, early maturing, very uniform hybrid, straight across the top, good yield for maturity, high SCA tolerance, good standability, high test weight. Again, that's something that we know that customers like. And then, of course, we mentioned the high charcoal rot tolerance. 29A27 is about a day later than 28C17. Some of the same things. Early maturity, good uniformity, good yield for maturity, high SCA. Again, it's going to be a little shorter plant. and good test weights. So these two have a lot of the same characteristics. Just as a matter of that one is bronze and one is cream. And again, these would be hybrids that would fit in your shorter season environments, whether it's the western high plains or the northern plains, or in that emergency situation I was talking about earlier. These two are really good hybrids for that. Okay, 59C30. This is a medium, so you can see 59 to 63 days to mid-bloom. Same things, over the top grass control, cream grain on a semi-compact head, excellent appearance, good standability, and high charcoal rot tolerance. The one thing about 59C30 that one of the reasons we brought it forward was that it has really good high-end yield potential. When we planted all these across a wide range of plots last year in 2024, we noticed that it was holding its own against some of the high-yielding conventionals that are out on the market right now, in competitors' bags. So that was one of the reasons this hybrid was brought forward. And then the last one is 62M22. DT2. This is a bronze hybrid. This is a very showy hybrid. It's really pretty. We note here it's got excellent appearance, good standability, good yields, and of course we mentioned the charcoal rot tolerance. We went ahead and put both tables on this page. You can see tough dry land recommended all of these hybrids because of some of their characteristics with the stiff stalk and stay green. Limited irrigation, we typically think of, you would go with the two longer season hybrids, and then of course gave the nod to 59C30 for the full irrigation. Well, as you can see here from this technology pipeline, the DT grain and the DT forage are out. So if it's got a green line or a green part of the arrow, you can see that it's commercial. If you're not aware, we have prussic acid free sorghum Sudan grass. We are launching that here in 2025. So we're excited about that one. If you have some interest in that, get a hold of us and we can talk about that. DT2, we're launching in 2025. So we've met all those timelines. The first test cross hybrids were made last year of a grain sorghum that has both double team and prussic acid free. So if you think about this, you'd have the ability to plant a grain sorghum, spray FirstAct over the top and kill your grassy weeds, and then begin grazing the sorghum stalks immediately after harvest. Because one of the reasons we don't graze sorghum stalks right away is because of the prussic acid concerns. And so this combined technology we think will really change the way they think about their grazing windows. We have a fully enabled molecular biology lab in Lubbock to go along with our breeding program. And we're working on two other advanced traits that are longer term. One is a broad spectrum herbicide tolerance. Again, trying to bring something along a companion that we could pair with the current double team system so that we would have a herbicide rotation in the systems. And then, of course, insect tolerance. We'll leave that at what it is, but we know that sorghum has some insect challenges that are pretty consistent year to year, and we're working on that. And again, it's a longer term development timeline, but I can say that it will be something unique. If you need to contact someone about finding double team seed, here is our S&W sales team. If you need to get a hold of Hunter for something, there's his contact information at the bottom as well. One last thing when it comes to resources is the doubleteamsorghum.com. This website has a lot of information. You can scan this to go to the website, doubleteamsorghum.com. What you're going to want to look for is the where to buy, are the ones that most people I think go to, and that gives you the list of those seed partners that we have out there. And then the other one is the resource tab. And here's a picture of the resource tab. It has a lot of good information here. The technical guide for the herbicides, a grower guide, which walks you through some of the stuff we talked about today. The stewardship piece, technical presentation. So we'll put this presentation there, as well as some other things. So if you got any questions, again, you can go to the doubleteamsorghum.com page. There is an ask a question box. So if you want to know something and you don't remember anybody's email or anything, go to this page, drop in that message, and we'll respond to the email that comes through to us. And so with that, we're going to go ahead and end the webinar And I want to thank all of you for coming, and I hope you have a great day.